abuse that people experience, whether it was that or whether it was with Jehovah's Witnesses.
You mentioned Waco. Did you watch the? There's been several documentaries, but there was actually a mini series on it. I know there's some historical inaccuracies in it, but it was a very well put together miniseries, very entertaining.
Yeah.
Did you see it?
I did.
Yeah.
I did.
What did you think of it? Was it?
So I'll jump back. I'm 41. I remember 11. Everyone knows the infamous footage of the ATF agent on the roof getting shot, rolling off. Well, he didn't really roll off. He gets back on the ladder and gets back down.
Yeah.
So it's just in my mind, you see it so fast. So I grew up around guns and shooting guns, even going out to the range with my dad, watching shows like Bonanza and Gunsmoke. I remember seeing that on the television, and immediately as an 11-year-old boy, I knew that's real. That's someone getting shot. That's in real time. And I remember just watching just the official story and watching the news, and because at that time no one really knew what was happening except from the major news sources. You had it from the newspapers and you had it from the major news stations. You didn't have podcasts. No one who was in
no YouTube, no independent,
no alternative media.
Nobody who was in Mount Carmel had any ability to communicate with the outside world. No one had any devices.
Think about that. If that had happened today, it would be a totally different Waco story. They'd all been in there on their phones, be like, the ATF just came in and shot my dad. I need everybody to live stream this. It would be, you probably couldn't do it.
They'd be showing all the videos of the bullet holes going through the roof at the time, which the ATF they just acknowledged that there was any they didn't have anyone shooting from helicopters, which all the independent lines of testimony and witness would have shown that was happening.
That it was they had it in the miniseries.
Yeah,
they showed them shooting through the helicopter into the building.
Right. So the official story at the time though is that the FBI had completely cut off any access to the compound as a 3-mile radius where media was standing, and the only account that you were getting were the daily FBI briefings of what was happening. And I remember I was at April 19th. There's a 51-day stand. April 19th. I had just turned 12. My birthday was 2 days after my birthday. My dad just yells Jeremiah, come in the house, come in the living room. You gotta see this. And so I run, and I've been watching the news every single day. I was really fascinated by this whole Waco thing. It's I'm following this. This is the first time I've seen someone get shot on TV. This is crazy. And I remember watching the compound burn down live. And I remember just feeling
75 people.
Feeling the horror, knowing that there were men, women, and children inside. Right. And even later, there's a propaganda film that came out called Ambush in Waco on the Line of Duty, which was a CBS produced movie that they were actually filming at the same time during the standoff, and it came out just after. The standoff had happened, and they tell a version where the ATF came in, and all of a sudden all the Branch Davidians had just ambushed them. They all at once shot through the roof. They shot through the walls and attacked the ATF. Which, when you actually look at what happened, is far few and in between. So no one really knows who shot first.
I'm sorry, few and in between. What does that mean? Because I'm confused. You're saying that in this show they show that the Branch Davidians ambushed the ATF.
Yeah, this is 1993. There's a propaganda film that came out. It actually came out on CBS.
Oh,
and
okay.
So they showed that this David Koresh, this total maniacal psychopath, that a lot of it,
which is very different from the miniseries that recently came out with Taylor Kitsch.
Yeah,
that one did not depict it that way. That one depicted it maybe
they showed a very human side to him.
Yeah, and to the followers themselves. I mean, there is and there was a strong argument that the ATF did not have the right to go in there and do that. That they went in, and in a matter of whether or not it was self-defense, but they shot back at the ATF, who, again, like you said, no one knows who shot first. A firefight ensued on private property.
Except that there was a civil court that was that was filed afterwards for grievances that weren't addressed. And in that, I was actually listening to the podcast. They said that the ATF admitted under oath that they had a unit specifically to dispatch the dogs. So they actually admitted under oath that in civil court, after this whole thing happened, that they did fire first.
Oh, interesting. I'm sorry. What about something about dogs? What?
So
they shot at the dogs.
Remember in
the movie, the dog barks and they shoot.
Yeah,
the ATF fires first.
So the official thing is no one really knows. at least I was listening into a podcast where there was somebody who was an attorney who'd written a whole bunch on it, and I think he was initially hired by the government to kind of just gather information, but they weren't really happy because the intel that he was gathering was going against the narrative they were trying to articulate post WACO. And one of the things that he acknowledged in this podcast, I can show you afterwards, but he was saying that there was a civil court that happened after WACO that was done by the Branch Davidians just to trying to get damages from the government for the loss of life.
Yeah, of
and
course,
in the civil court under oath, the ATF admitted that they did fire first. They specifically, because when they had the ambush that came out, they lost the element of surprise. But even with the element of surprise, they had a group within the ATF specifically assigned to get rid of the dogs, to shoot the dogs.
Oh, so they shot the dogs?
Yeah.
Okay.
Makes sense, because they're loud, they make noise, they're going to bite you. If you were trying to surprise all the Branch Davidians, you can't have that. So.
And when you look, and so even like the narrative, when you just look at, and this is the thing too, like
what was because this was different too in the miniseries I watched, and I've seen a couple conflicting reports.
Yeah.
The ATF's reason for infiltrating WACO was weapons or child abuse?
Initially it was weapons. Like the reason how it got involved is that there was a shipment that was headed to Mount Carmel, and there was someone, I think it was a UPS driver, and one of the boxes came loose, and apparently within the box were grenades. And the person got concerned. They called the authorities. Eventually worked its way to the ATF, and they were stockpiling guns. And a lot of the reasons why they're even stockpiling guns wasn't even necessarily about Koresh's apocalyptic visions. At that time, the Clinton administration had just come in office. There was their first year. It was in 1993 when it started. He got elected in 92, became president in 93.
Okay.
So brand new administration. Like around January, he was inaugurated. And so. What ended up happening too, just so you know too, the first attack on the World Trade Center happened. So the investigation was supposed to happen like a lot earlier than February.
Wasn't the World Trade Center much later than WACO?
No, the first attack on the World Trade Center.
The first attack on the World Trade Center.
Oh,
remember
right.
when they? Yeah.
Yeah, right. Dude,
So
I forgot there's more than one attack on the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. So all these different things are happening, and
So guns were a political point of contention, and with Bill Clinton being Bill Clinton, obviously his party doesn't support them.
Right.
Was that a contributing factor in your opinion?
Yeah. So every single time whenever you look at whenever a president and the administration goes in office, that's anti-gun. Usually the price of sale of guns just goes way up.
Way up. Yeah.
So I remember when Trump just had gotten elected, and I was actually working trying to sell these business loans to businesses. I went inside a local gun shop here. And he basically said, ever since Trump got elected, I can't sell a gun. But then, when Obama, when Sandy Hook happened, and Obama had written a bunch of executive orders, I remember going into a couple gun stores just to shoot, because I already had with my dad.
Sure.
And literally there was 2 guns left on the shelf. Yeah. Everyone ran in there, and it was like toilet paper in 2020. Everyone goes in panic buys. So at that time, a lot of the ideas they have for collecting these guns, hey, let's buy them now before they jack up in price, and we can flip those later on.
With the context that WACO is Texas, under Texas law, and this is WACO was when? The 70s?
No, this is our early 90s.
Early 90s.
Early 90s.
Okay.
You can have everything except for automatic guns.
So are grenades in any way, shape, or form illegal? Are they legal to have in Texas?
I don't know the exact laws. I think it was enough. I think if it was, they would have used that as a catalyst. I think they were trying to nab them for something. But what ended up happening is that
it seemed a little gray.
It's gray.
The way that it was painted in what I watched was exactly what you're saying, that this was a highly politically motivated move by the ATF, by the director of the FBI and the ATF, that they were doing this for almost personal political reasons.
If you think of it, any time there's those infamous pictures of the DEA when they have a whole bunch of drugs in front of them, and they do that to make themselves good. And so they had Ruby Ridge, which was a standoff which went horribly wrong.
I remember that
months prior.
Yes, in the woods. That guy, the guy.
They do that at the very beginning.
They show that,
show. And so, from my understanding, is that it just made them look really bad. And when a brand new administration is going into office, they want to every agency is competing for funding, and so they're looking for one way to try and get the reputation back. I think they're trying to just to look for put on a good show, and they wanted to just do this raid to show that, because there's subtle allegations of child abuse, but at least everything that they had was all hearsay. They had people that had given accusations prior, and prior to the raid ever happening, they had Child Protective Services go out there on several occasions. They never found any actual evidence of child abuse at that time, even though there was eyewitness and testimony that came later on that he was trying to marry underage brides, because he had this idea of marrying a bunch of
he didn't he?
Yeah.
David Koresh, again, back to one of the earlier points, David Koresh married almost all of his female members, or took on the role. I remember that they showed that. He didn't allow, he demanded, this is hilarious. David Koresh demanded celibacy from his male followers, but demanded that the female followers all have sex with him.
And that was something I wanted to ask you about too, is like, it seems to be a reoccurring theme where sexual abuse is like baked into the cake with cults. How often would you say?
I always expect it.
Okay.
Like, I'm never surprised by any more. Like, when you hear someone who's a cult survivor, especially if you're talking with a female who's a cult survivor, good chance she's got some level of abuse, has been assaulted on some level. If it's not, I'm surprised.
Yeah.
Is it just a matter of a power trip? These leaders just get it in their head that they can do anything or anyone? Get away with it?
Well, this is interesting because I view cults through a Christian worldview, and I believe the author of Sexuality, of how things are supposed to be, is like God is the one who writes the book, who writes the rule book, and so he is the author of what to do, what not to do. So when a cult leader takes the role of God, he gets to rewrite the book on what sexuality is, and what that really entails isn't just the rules for what they can and can't do. It's the rules for what that leader can do with its members.